Well, I don't know why Melissa's not here. She was really excited actually to come here and to meet you and to talk to her friend. Oh, it's Gregory. I was gonna say
Oh, it's only Gregory.
it's only Gregory.
Gregory,
Hey, Brian.
how are
Hey,
you,
Austin. Hey, everybody.
bro?
Hey, bud. I was just saying that Melissa was the one who was really excited about meeting Brian and potentially, talking to her potential investor friend about you. And she was the one like, I'll be there, and she's not here. But she has 2 kids and all that, so and she's got a lot. So yeah, we just did a personal check-in, and we're about to get into it. Do you want to let us into your heart and your world a little bit?
Yeah, I loved our call yesterday, and I'm just clear on how we need, or I need, a better way of living, a next level home that integrates, intergenerationally and with nature, and it's just a little bit more, I don't know, wholesome. And I was just actually had a conversation just now about AI, and someone was asking me about AI, and like, can AI just? I told them it's kind of like a genie. It's almost this. We've released this genie, and it's like, can you ask it questions and it'll just give you things? And it's like, well, yeah, it'll give you like essays, anything that's 2-dimensional, but you pair it with a 3D printer. Like, you could literally like describe to AI a house, and it will create a version. I mean, that's not that far away. So anyway, I was just thinking about where we're going on this planet, and mixed. I feel mixed about all of it, but I want to get back to simple stuff. But why not use some technology to do it? I'm open. I'm in.
Yeah. Well, what do we want to? I mean, Brian and I have been talking more than the rest of you, but maybe Brian, do you want to give us maybe like an update where you at with the whole?
Yeah, so Christian and I have talked a couple times since New Year, and I've just really been feeling effects of Mercury kind of disrupting things a little bit as far as the connection of things and just the purity and the wholesomeness of I didn't want to fill out an application to get a loan. I didn't want to take my year-end documents and send them to somebody and they didn't get them, or just have a thing. So I just kind of put a little pause and put a little stronger emphasis on intention at the moment. And kind of like you're saying, Gregory, how can we transform the AI sort of bad perception into a beneficial? How can we make this thing, increase our potential as humans and a positive thing? So it's really, for me, just been kind of an internal time to stoke the fire, get it going in a good direction. So I'm about to, I'll just say, launch my application campaign. There's a couple companies with Mudbots. I just like Mudbots because I've talked to them. There's Christian and I have been sharing links and such to other 3D printers. They all seem to be somewhat accessible, the same, meaning we can call them, but they're kind of just inventing stuff, and we could probably invent stuff too. But Mudbots seems like they've been with USA Robotics for that's one of their sister companies. So I just feel more attracted to Mudbots than anything else. So does Mudbots?
Yeah, after all the videos I've seen, they really got their shit together, and they really run a tight ship and
so
a working product.
I kind of know the price point ish, and they seem motivated, to really help out, and all the benefits that come with joining their side. So basically, I'm looking at a $500,000 loan. They have a couple of lenders that are on their website that have already financed multiple people to purchase the MudBot. I'm looking at, and one of them has a deferred payment, so I'm kind of just getting ready to start doing application stuff. So I want to get I'm trying to collect as much money as owed to me as possible. Being a general contractor, Christian, you know how it goes. Austin, I'm sure you know how it goes. You're always doing stuff for free and then billing afterward. You know, it's not even on paper. So I'm trying to collect my money, pay my debt, my credit cards, and get looking good on paper by the end of this month here. And then I'll start putting some applications out personally as my company to see, you know, what they are. Amortization tables are kind of showing a 10-year loan, $500,000. It's about, we'll call it $6,000. So if you do a 20-year loan, it's maybe $4,500, and that's just a general table. It's not anything locked in, but it just brought up to Christian and I, you know, we're buying a piece of equipment. How many pieces of equipment last 10 years or 20 years? You know, when you got we'll call it a tractor, you know, you got a backhoe loader or something, it's more than just a monthly payment, like a lease on a car or something, you know. So that's kind of how I'm picturing it and comparing it, and just getting ready to financially, you know, engage in that agreement, in that just that monthly nut, you know. I know that I can do it. I know that with help of whoever we find and however we find it, I don't think this is going to be the only printer that's purchased. So, and I'm also talking, there's an architect down in LA. He's in Long Beach, I think. And I just got connected from a friend of a friend, and he's working on like a 7,000 square foot house down in LA, and he wants to use a 3D printer. I'm bidding the project as a conventional project, but it's kind of a high learning curve to start 3D printing, you know, 10-foot retaining walls on a mountainside, you know, for a residence that's 3 stories and has bowling lanes and shit inside. It's a big project. So, but that guy is tied into multiple municipalities that are looking for affordable housing alternatives. So tiny homes, 3D printer. That's his friend, he said, just had to give back $20 million because he couldn't figure out how to affordably build houses. I don't remember what county it was. I think it's out near Palm Springs.
Oh, the money from the city, from the state?
Yeah, I'm not sure what jurisdiction, but they got a grant and they had to give it back because they couldn't find a way to build. So there's money
what was expected the return for that money?
I don't really know. I don't have all the details. I just know that story. That
seems like an interesting thing to pursue and find out more about. I mean, shit, absolutely. Free money, it's never really quite free, but that's it. I mean, I don't doubt that he couldn't figure out how to do affordable housing. I mean, shit, everything is so expensive right now.
Right. So that was, I did talk to him. His name is Jerry, and he's a design build. He retired on the build side, so now he's just an architect down in the LA area. So cool.
Have you guys? Christian, I think maybe mentioned that has MudBots been used with anything other than cement, like normal cement? I mean, I know you guys, there was a link with some of these geopolymers.
Definitely. I've only heard the CEO reference geopolymers and its PSI strength in a couple of videos, but it's basically an auger. They've made modifications to their auger multiple times, and it's so they have a couple ways. You either mix it, we'll call it in a bucket, and dump it into the machine, or you have a batch plant that has like it's like a silo that's divided into multiple chambers, and then it just kind of drops onto a conveyor belt that puts it in a hopper. Those are the kind of two ways that I've seen them do it, assemble their materials. But they mentioned the geopolymers, and they mentioned the PSI being 50,000 PSI or something just ridiculously strong compared to concrete. And I'm confident, but I haven't talked to them. So our next steps with Mudbots is that conversation. They want to get on just like this, a Zoom call with, I got a structural engineer buddy down in Mill Valley who said he'd be happy to collaborate. They will not let us even really talk to them until we have a structural engineer, a general contractor, and the money, more or less. So that's, or at least potential money.
Who won't let you talk to them?
Mudbots.
Oh, Mudbots.
They're just overwhelmed. They're answering calls and they're overwhelmed because they're getting calls all over the world.
Because so many people are interested in that technology, but they're like, but those people might not even be contractors. Like, well, you're interested, but do you know how to build a house? And they're like, oh, we'll figure it out. And so they're not even talking to people like that.
Yeah.
I have a structural engineer too. If we need David Yadigar, who if we need a structural engineer for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I also have I know two people who are building domes from geopolymers.
Nice.
One's called GeoShip, and the other one's called Zomes. And these guys have gone deep into the geopolymers, like how to mix them and stuff. And it's a fascinating thing. Some of the one that's magnesium oxide is one that's kind of, I don't know. It's one that I know of. The only trick with it is it sets pretty quickly. Like it sets.
That is exactly.
If you don't put borax in it, it can set within 15 minutes. And then you can slow it down to about an hour. But like getting it to set any slower than an hour is tricky, which I think could be, in the right circumstances, a strength. But it is amazing stuff. It's like liquid ceramics. I've been playing around with it. I have some. I have like a bunch of bags here. And you mix this stuff up and it heats up. It's kind of like an epoxy. And then when it sets, it's this ceramic, like super strong ceramic, like white substance that is molecularly fundamentally different than concrete in that the polarity of the molecules attract. So instead of like concrete almost repels everything. So if you put like any organic matter, that's why I have to put all those binders into concrete if you're mixing it with like wood posts or all that stuff, like because it repels everything. Whereas magnesium oxide, I don't know about other geopolymers, it actually molecularly will bind to almost anything, to definitely wood. So you could actually put wood chips into geopolymers to strengthen it, to add fiber, like instead of like fiberglass and stuff like that. Whereas if you did that to concrete, you would totally fuck it up, right? It'll bond to glass, to metal. I mean, the shit is kind of miraculous, and it's 4 times stronger than concrete. I mean, it costs more, but because it's 4 times stronger, and you can use these other substances for fibers, you can use a lot less of it.
Well, so maybe once we're in a serious conversation with Mudbots, we can connect your people with them, because almost in every video he's saying that he's open to feedback from the community and that we're all figuring this out together. So the guy that runs the company is very open, from what I can tell, to these conversations. Mm-hmm. And the problem is this fast drying time, especially you have to do a lot of math, because if you're building, if your holes is 100 feet or versus 50 feet, you're going to have to make a different batch, and you got to do a lot of calculation, what the weather's like, when all these things.
Well, on the opposite side of things, have you guys come across anybody who's doing like cob or stucco with these things? Which is a slow, like I can see the challenge with that is it doesn't dry fast enough, or it doesn't cure fast enough.
When I talked to Aaron is the sales rep that I'm talking to out of Utah. He mentioned that they had just sold a MudBot to a guy in Moab who was printing, without permits, but he had an aircrete mixture that he was printing, basically boulder shaped on the mountainside, red structures. It basically, he was trying to blend into the mountainside. So, like Christian was saying, I think that they're open to any formula experience. They're not selling a proprietary mix. Many of the 3D printers are trying to sell their batch with the machine and saying you have to use this with this or whatnot. So, I mean, it makes sense if you're that machine maker, but I think MudBots is open to, hey, we'll help solve any mixture that you have, whatever you're trying to do. We just want to help get our printers out and help people be able to build affordably.
Cool.
So, yeah, they seem, again, like an innovative company that's open to experiment.
Would your friends that are working with geopolymer would want to talk to MudBots?
Who, my friends?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, because we'd be competition, I mean, these guys are pumping out domes. I mean, I think that for them it might not be in their best interest to, but Sharif, he's actually really into open sourcing everything. In fact, he's not hiding anything, how he's doing the domes and stuff. I'm sure, yeah, I bet I could convince him. Or I can ask him any questions we have. I'm actually probably going to see him tomorrow.
Suggestion just in general for this call, perhaps. I mean, I know we've been talking about going into the technical stuff here, but I'm really, since we have Brian on here, and since our conversation yesterday was really about, well, who is this person in relationship to funding? And also so that Melissa can get to know him on some levels. One thing I was thinking is this, if we could do maybe like a really abbreviated full spectrum client intake on Brian, just so that, we can start to get to know him and have that so that, as opposed to getting the technicalities of these things, that we can actually see where you're coming from. Because I think that, I mean, I get a sense of where you're coming from, and I think we do as well. But I know that Melissa, Melissa Wright, Melissa Orion, and then also whoever that funder is that they're talking to, that would maybe allow this, even if they're not here, we can send it and say, you got to listen to this. This is your homework. Listen to this when you have time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, I love that idea. And as to me, the fastest way for us to get to money, I think, or no, I don't know if that's take that back, but give us a lot of credibility if we have a following, if we have a list, and if we had a list of 100. If we had a Twitter account with 100,000 active people, it would be a lot easier to get money because people see that, in a way, they take that as being real. So I want to, maybe we could video this, and I want to do also like a more casual interview with Brian and video, and make a video that we could share, like a shorter, like 20-minute video versus your hour and a half interview. But I could film that. Maybe we could do it out in a park somewhere in nature, if that works for you, I think.
It sounds great. I'm in 100%. So you guys, I think Christian and I were kind of talking about trying to get together today. I don't know if it's going to work for I maybe would have an hour, and it'd be kind of rushing it and pushing it. I'd rather have a little more open schedule, but just kind of coming up with some questions. Christian and I, there's a guy who is on YouTube. He's a 3D house printing just fanatic, and he's just been going around the world for years. His name's Jarrett, I think, Gross Gross, and he has a class how to build a 3D house. He's never built a 3D house, but he tries to find every single one in the world and go to them and interview the people building them and interview the people in the shops and the machinery. And he's been to Mudbots a handful of times and spoke with them. And he is kind of somebody that Christian and I were talking about calling and or emailing or just getting in a conversation with him. And then we found Geopolymer International? Is that who we were
I think so.
jazzed about last? Yeah, there's a company that's, are they in Ohio or Indiana? I don't remember where they're at, but they are super.
So they're
trying to be open source. They're like, hey, call us. We want to help you. Like, our goal is to help. We're looking at this from a holistic perspective, not just 3D printing, but we're growing food. We have fish tanks, we have plants, hydroponic gardens, and like a comprehensive housing philosophy.
And they have a mixture, geopolymer mixture that works. But their 3D printer compared to Mudbot looks a little archaic. So that's the problem.
Risky. Yeah, but it's still, it's like they roll theirs on a track. So you got to set up a train track to move it back and forth. But I think they're, at least they have a formula they're working on. They're printing stuff. They're using it. I mean, I'm not even really opposed to tilt up. I've just been kind of thinking about that for 3D printing. Do we print in a controlled environment so that we can continually print? And then, I know it involves shipping, but if we can do it somewhere close to the location, maybe that's an alternative, and then either getting a crane or getting some sort of lifting mechanism, or even trying to do it, with pipes and rolling it and, old school without all of the modern equipment that uses gasoline, and just trying to come up with alternative ways of showing how this can be done.
Yeah. Well, just to complete Austin's idea, how much time do you, Austin, usually need? Like hour and a half, 2 hours?
No, not even that. I mean, I think we can do this actually quickly in about 10, 15 minutes. And the idea
want to do it right. Were you proposing to do it right now?
Well, because I mean, my understanding of the call was to kind of get to start hook up Brian with the rest of the with what's going on with Festiville, because that was what was presented about. But in order to have that start happening, there's a process of having to get to know. So,
okay.
I mean, I'm open for anything, but
I'm open to that. Do you want to, Brian? You want Austin to ask you a few questions right now?
Here, guys.
You just broke up for just a sec. So what I would suggest, Christian, is maybe stop this recording, if that's a way to do that, and then start another one so that